Welcome to St. Louis County Library's virtual program, Monarchs and Mosquitoes. Control the pests, protect the pollinators, part of the Partners for Native Landscaping webinar series. Now I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Jean Ponzi. Jean is the Green Resources Specialist for the Earthways Center of Missouri Botanical Garden. Thank you for being with us this afternoon, Jean. Feel free to take it away.
Thank you very much. Very, very happy to be here and always love to be a part of programming at the St. Louis County Library System. Thank you for helping the Partners for Native Landscaping reach so many people who are St. Louis County Library patrons. So I get to talk about bugs today. I work at the Missouri Botanical Garden in the Earthway Center. We are the sustainability division of the garden, and bugs and plants and people have a lot of kinds of interactions. Many people feel kind of icky about bugs, but if it weren't for them, we would not have functioning ecosystems. Our natural communities would really be in big trouble. So, I'm going to talk about monarchs and mosquitoes today. And part of this project, part of this subject matter comes from a project that I do with St. Louis University. I'm going to go here to St. Louis University School of Public Health and Social Justice and St. Louis County Department of Public Health and the City of St. Louis Health Department. It's a project called Mosquito Alert, which is a citizen science project. And I'll get to that. But in this program, I have the opportunity to ask you if you would please, if you have your phone handy and you would whip out your phone and you would like to take a very short survey. This should probably take you a minute, two at the most. Scan that QR code and it will take you right to the survey. This is a piece of research that my colleagues at St. Louis University are doing to see what we can learn about how what people know about insects, the beneficial insects and the problematic insects, and what we have the capacity to learn through a program like this, and also our attitudes about citizen science and how we as individuals can contribute to science. So I'm going to give you just another moment there to scan that QR code if you'd like to take the survey. This is completely anonymous and it follows all the protocols for doing good research. And I'm really proud to be a part of a team that includes academics that know how to do this kind of stuff and know how to analyze the data. And we'll have another little quick quiz, very similar at the end, that will allow us to gauge how effective this presentation has been. So monarchs and mosquitoes, ready to change off this slide? Got that QR code? Thank you. Again, this is completely optional. People in St. Louis are gardening for pollinators, and this is off the charts in popularity. We are putting milkweed and coneflowers and coreopsis and blue false indigo and brown-eyed Susans and blazing stars into our yards, into our schoolyards, onto our corporate properties. We have a massively popular and successful native plant movement that is really led by our interest in supporting pollinators. And it's something to be proud of. We have a native plant movement in the St. Louis region that is a national leader, according to one of the experts on this subject, a man named Doug Tallamy, who has written books on native plants, the importance of native plants to insects and people. And we have collaborations like Mosquito Alert, the citizen science project that I mentioned a moment ago, that are working toward educating the community about ways that we can protect ourselves from mosquito-borne diseases, enjoy the out of doors, protect our beneficial insects, while also getting over the ideas about the problematic insects that makes us want to get rid of them all, because really insects are the little things that run the world. So I'm going to go right to the bugs here. What do you know about this insect? And my colleagues at the library are going to keep track of the chat. If you have questions and you want to put them into, I believe it's in the Q&A function, I'm going to stop every few minutes and, a little bit in intervals in this presentation and take questions. But just in general, who's this? What do you know about this insect? It's one of the most iconic insects that we know, the monarch butterfly. Danus plexippus is its scientific name. And you can see the monarch there feeding on, getting nectar and pollen around on a plant that it has a very, very important relationship with. And the nature of that relationship in ecological terms is called being a specialist. When you are a plant or an animal and you are a specialist, it means that you have a unique life or death relationship with another kind of living entity, whether it's another animal or whether it's between a plant and animal or it's two plants. And with monarchs, that specialist relationship is with plants in the milkweed family. Asclepiadaceae is the scientific name for the milkweeds. There are many different kinds of milkweeds. We have probably 7 or 8 types of milkweed, varieties of milkweed that are native to the St. Louis area, meaning do well here. But monarchs have a relationship that works with any kind of milkweed plant. And that is caterpillars have to eat milkweed in order to grow. So if a monarch butterfly is ready to lay eggs and cannot find a milkweed and lays her eggs on any plant other than a plant in the milkweed family, when those caterpillars hatch out, they will starve. And that's a really important thing to understand because when monarchs are migrating through, when monarchs in our area are in our area, they're in our area because they're in a part of their yearly migration cycle where they need to reproduce. I'll show you a little map of that in a moment. So if there are not milkweed plants around in leaf, they don't have to be in flower because monarchs can get nectar and pollen from any kind of flower, but the flowers help to attract them to the plants. No milkweeds, no next generation of monarchs because the caterpillars have to eat milkweed leaves. This is what monarchs look like when they start out life as eggs. This is the case with many kinds of insects. They start out as an egg. Often the eggs are laid on plants. You can see in the upper left-hand corner there how tiny these eggs are, but with the really highly magnified image at the bottom of your screen, just how beautiful they are. And it's interesting to me that in the egg stage, the eggs have the lines and the little patterns, the little between the lines on the eggs that are almost a harbinger, almost a predecessor of what their chrysalises are going to look like when they're on their way from going from a caterpillar to being a butterfly. And often monarchs will lay their eggs on the underside of the milkweed leaves. That helps the caterpillars when they hatch out be a little less visible to birds that are looking for a snack. And eggs will be on the milkweed leaves, and then out of them will hatch caterpillars. And you can see in this photo that caterpillars really grow from very, very, very tiny insects in their larval stage to pretty good sized caterpillars. I've seen milkweed monarch caterpillars as long as like close to 2 inches long. And look at that coloration on the monarch caterpillars. If you're a caterpillar and you can't move very fast, sometimes you want to be really camouflaged. A lot of butterflies and moth larvae, caterpillars, look just like the leaves or the twigs that they will be feeding on. But with monarchs, bold, yellow, white, black stripes, getting the attention of any kind of bird, which is a funny thing because monarchs have evolved in their eating milkweed. There's a toxin in the sap of milkweed that gets to the caterpillars through the leaves, and they have evolved to be able to tolerate this toxin. But if a bird eats a monarch caterpillar and survives, that bird will not make the same mistake again. The viceroy butterfly, which looks very much like the monarch, kind of golden brown, black and white spots and lines, is mimics the monarch, doesn't need to eat milkweed, can't tolerate that toxin, but has the same kind of coloration as a butterfly and as a caterpillar to fool the birds into thinking they shouldn't eat the monarch, the viceroy caterpillar either. Evolutionary traits like that, evolutionary adaptations, I think, are so fascinating and sometimes they're really funny. So here are monarch caterpillars chomping along on milkweed. And sometimes you'll see caterpillars if you're growing milkweed. If you're lucky, you will, because someone hasn't eaten them yet. Some critters do eat them. If you're lucky, you'll find a monarch chrysalis, which is the when the insect is going into its pupal stage, from its larval to its pupal stage. When the insect is ready to do that, the caterpillar will attach itself to the stem of a milkweed plant and will literally form around its body a chrysalis, a coating, a substance that becomes hard and turns into this very distinctive, beautiful silver green pupal case with little tiny little golden dots on it. It is a very, very beautiful container in which to go through the metamorphosis that an insect goes through on its way from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. And the monarch will stay in there for, I believe, about a week. Not actually sure about that. And when the caterpillar goes into its pupal stage, creates the chrysalis, it already has all the butterfly parts in its body. We used to think that it sort of turned into soup in that chrysalis and then out of it butterfly parts formed, but new research has shown that the butterfly is already in the caterpillar when the caterpillar spins the chrysalis, which I think is another very fun and wonderful thing to know. When metamorphosis is complete and the caterpillar has turned into a butterfly, the chrysalis will turn black, and that's how you know you're about ready to see a monarch butterfly hatch out. And here you can see the whole progression, that chrysalid, that pupal progression. You can actually see in the silver green chrysalis on the upper left, you can see the curve of the wing that is becoming visible inside the chrysalis once it turns black and then the butterfly hatches out. It's going to take that butterfly a little hunk of time, probably a couple of hours, for its wings to fully expand and dry out and harden. And when it is in that transitional phase, it's very vulnerable to predators because it can't fly yet. So not a great time to touch a monarch butterfly, but if you want to keep watch on it and you've got a couple of hours on your hand and you can swat away any predators, you will help that monarch on its way through its adulthood, through its remarkable lifespan. And once the insect becomes an adult, then it is no longer terrestrial like the caterpillars and the eggs were. It becomes a flying insect, an airborne insect. So that's monarchs. And then here's the other thing about monarch butterflies. They migrate. They migrate in great numbers. And this is one of the amazing mysteries in the natural world. We don't know why they do it. They the lower left-hand photo there shows monarch butterflies in massive numbers overwintering on pine trees in the Oyamel pine forests of southern Mexico. And in the central part of our continent, there is this amazing monarch migrations. The butterflies overwinter in Mexico and pretty far down, you can see on the map, on the Mexican peninsula. And then they begin to migrate in the spring up toward the middle of the country where we are. Monarchs will start flying through here anywhere, depending on how warm it gets, anywhere from the beginning of April through the end of May. And when the monarchs that overwintered in Mexico fly through our part of the continent, they need to find milkweed and they need to reproduce. So the generation that overwintered comes up into the middle of the continent, reproduces. A new generation will migrate up to Canada there, reproduce. That generation will fly back down to the middle of the North American continent where we are, reproduce. That means milkweed at every one of those reproducing points. And that last generation in the fall will make it down to Mexico and will overwinter, will delay reproduction and fly back up to the middle of the continent again. It's an amazing phenomenon. Monarchs are seriously endangered because their habitat in Mexico is endangered. Their habitat in North America, up and down North America, is endangered because we have planted our row crops so far out to the edges of our fields or treated the plants in our agricultural lands with herbicides that no longer allow milkweeds to grow and populate what used to be hedgerows on the edge of farm fields. So monarch populations have seriously declined. Scientists are studying this. Citizen scientists are studying this. And here's where we can come in as ordinary people. We can participate in a project called Monarch Watch, which comes out of the University of Kansas in Lawrence, KU, Kansas State University, whatever KU is. Monarch Watch is a project that is based there. And it was launched by a scientist named Dr. Chip Taylor, who actually studied another kind of insect, but happened to be in Mexico one time when the monarchs were overwintering and fell in love with monarchs and has been a monarch guy ever since. When you participate in Monarch Watch, you write to them. They will send you a sheet, a little recording sheet, and a page of these tiny, tiny little stickers. Each one will have a unique number. When you see a monarch during the migratory season and you can catch it in a butterfly net and apply one of these little stickers to it and write down the number and where and when you released that monarch, ultimately send that data back to Monarch Watch, it helps scientists track the ups and downs, mostly downs, unfortunately, at this point, of monarch populations. I've had the opportunity to tag 5 monarchs, which I felt very honored to do at the Missouri Botanical Garden. And guess who invented the adhesive that makes this work? 3M, who gave us Scotch tape and Post-it notes. They also gave us PFAS, polyfluoroalkylated substances, the forever chemicals that we're hearing about in the news. So it's kind of like the large print giveth and the fine print taketh away. But they invented an adhesive that would adhere down a cell or two into the butterfly wing, not add weight to the butterfly. So the butterfly is not trying to fly like this, and also round so there's no corners to flap up. I think that's a very cool story. This is a graph that shows data that Monarch Joint Venture, Monarch Watch, other research partnerships have been keeping track of about monarch migrations. And the important thing, the valuable thing to understand here is the you can do, which is that we can plant milkweed in our native plant garden. Plants are good for ecological purposes of all kinds, but including milkweed in our gardens. And there is at least one variety of milkweed that does okay in semi-shade. Most of them do need really full sun. When you really participate in this and you really go all whole hog, you might participate in Monarch Watch, or you might designate your yard a Monarch Way station and record where your yard is, and that's also part of keeping track of all of that data. It's impactful. It's wonderful. It's something that I'm just covering in the very briefest sort of summary here, but something that's really fun to learn about. And in schools, in our homes, in our communities, in our faith-based communities, people are gardening for pollinators, connecting ourselves and our spirits and our lives and our bodies and our well-being to nature and helping restore habitat that insects like monarchs need to thrive. And the plants that do this are the species of plants that are our native plants. The whole webinar series that today's talk is part of, Partners for Native Landscaping, is covering a lot of different aspects of native plants. I'm just really touching on them here today because I'm focused on 2 kinds of bugs. But the mother lode, the wonderful place to get information about native plants, planting plans, plant lists, where to get the plants, beautiful full color photos and garden designs is at the website grownative.org. Grow Native is our regional native plant program, and in my personal and professional opinion, it is the best native plant program in the country. It arose from our tax-supported Missouri Department of Conservation, and it is flourishing under the leadership of the Missouri Prairie Foundation. So when you go to your local garden centers, that's where you got to go. The big box stores can't stock these native plants because that's not how they source their products. Go to the local garden center, look for purple and green tags, purple pots, purple planted plant shells, and make sure that you incorporate some milkweed into your native plant garden. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and check questions.
Yes,
Do, 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 do.
sorry, give us 1 second. We have to, can you mute?
Oh, Janice, I see, Janice, you had a monarch chrysalis on a little blue stem. It's not necessarily normal, but by the time the monarch is ready to crystallize, go into its pupal stage, it may just attach itself to another kind of plant stem. When it's done being a caterpillar, it's done needing the milkweed. It's the caterpillars that have to eat the milkweed. And there are some kinds, there are a lot of milkweed gardens. There are a lot of milkweed stems. There's a lot of this going on around the St. Louis area. The key is the plant going to be ready given what's happening with our seasonality by the time the monarchs migrate through. And the timing of the insect moving and the plant leafing and the plant flowering and all that, that's getting disrupted by climate change. So the more milkweed we can have, the better chances the monarchs we have. And David, you're asking about how significant is the overwintering generation to lifespan of the monarchs. There's not much that we can do in Missouri, in the Midwest US, to support what is happening in Mexico, where the monarchs are overwintering. That's habitat protection that needs to happen there. And there are political forces, social forces, ecological forces that are all in play. The important thing is that we have plenty of milkweed leafed out, growing, ready to host monarch reproduction in the spring and the fall when the bugs migrate through here. And
we also received a couple questions about protecting monarchs from predators, and I'm just wondering if there is anything that we should be doing for that. Is there
no,
anything that we can do to, I mean,
mm,
yeah, they're part
okay,
of the
so
life cycle.
it's part of the life cycle. It's part of nature taking its course. And one of the reasons why an insect will lay so many eggs and so many caterpillars will hatch out is because only some of them make it for various reasons. I mean, one kind of insect to watch out for is there is a getting to be an invasive species, a variety of praying mantis that is an Asian variety that is not native to this continent, and identifying the kind of praying mantis you may have. And if you have the invasive kind, they do eat butterflies. That would be a kind of bug to be able to clearly identify and pick off. And I'm going to go on because I have a lot of stuff to cover here.
Yes,
Good
we've
Yeah.
received lots of
questions.
questions. So
And Jack, you said you planted milkweed varieties in 2024, saw no monarchs. Just keep them coming. Keep them coming. The monarch populations, as I said, they have seriously declined. The important thing is to restore the reproductive plant source, that specialist relationship plant source in monarch habitat, and have it be here when they migrate through, and have faith. Keep those milkweeds coming, and we're doing our best for the monarchs. And now, what do you know about this insect? Buzz, 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 buzz. If you said it's a female mosquito, you were absolutely correct, because only female mosquitoes bite. First of all, they have a proboscis, which is a piercing mouth part that allows them to pierce the skin of their prey, whether that's a human or a bird or a bat or a horse or whatever. And also, female mosquitoes take a blood meal from a mammal host, not for nourishment, but to reproduce. That female mosquito is getting blood from a host in order to get the protein that she needs to produce eggs. So, mosquito biting is a reproductive strategy. It is not a nutritionally related strategy. And only female mosquitoes can bite. Male mosquitoes will nectar on plants. They will get a little pollen, get a little nectar meal, but mostly they reproduce with the females. And so the good joke about this is it's one of the places in the natural world where the guys are blameless. I'm an old feminist. What can I say? Mosquitoes start out as eggs, like many insects do. And in this instance, they are eggs that are laid on the surface of standing water. Monarchs lay their eggs on milkweed. That's because of that specialist relationship. Other insects will lay their eggs on other kinds of plants. With mosquitoes, they lay their eggs in standing water. There are other insects that will lay their eggs inside the body of another insect. When the eggs hatch out, they're parasitic. They consume the critter that they were laid in from the inside out. Ew, all that kind of zombie cool stuff in the bug world. But with mosquitoes, it's always on water. And you can tell by the way the mosquito eggs are laid what kind of mosquito species you have. And this is one of the important ways that we have of differentiating the kind of mosquito we have active, which is important because not all mosquitoes carry diseases. Many mosquitoes will lay their eggs in rafts, masses that stick together until the eggs hatch. But some species of mosquitoes will lay their eggs in a little kind of a random pattern, like what you see there in the lower right side, which sort of looks like It sort of looks like seeds on bread or rabbit droppings or, mouse droppings or some kind of thing like that. They must be laid on standing water because when these eggs hatch out, the insects, the mosquitoes in their larval and pupal stage develop in water. They are aquatic in the first few stages of their life. And as with monarchs, mosquito larvae will shed their skins and get bigger and shed their skins and get bigger. That's called going through instars, is the name of those growth phases for insects in their larval phases. And they're very wiggly. So when you look in standing water, if you see wiggly stuff going around, you know you have a mosquito breeding site. The mosquitoes in their aquatic phases, their developmental phases, do breathe air, even though they live in water. With the larvae, you can see on the lower left there, on the bottom end of their body, they have a little siphon. So they will attach themselves to the surface of the water upside down, and that's how they take a breath. And then, and that's what happens to larvae through the larval stage of mosquitoes. And that can last anywhere between 2 to 5 days. Mosquitoes going through their developmental cycle. The hotter it gets, the faster that process proceeds. After they go through their larval stage, they pupate. They develop a little pupal case, very much like the monarch butterfly developed the chrysalis. And in this instance, you see mosquitoes in their pupal form. They too are floating around in water. They look like little floating commas, the punctuation mark, the comma, and they will attach upside down to the surface of water, and that's how they breathe. When you disturb water, the larvae tend to wiggle all around like crazy, and the pupa tend to just kind of go up and down. They're not as wiggly as their larval sisters and brothers. Once the mosquito has gone through those stages of development, the larva will attach itself to the surface of water. The monarch attached itself to the stem of a plant, and and at that point in time, that point of attachment, that's when the adult mosquito will hatch out. And you can see on the upper photo there, the adult is hatching out of the pupal case. On the lower photo, the pupal case has been left like, the husks of a plant or like the bodies of cicadas last year as they were going through their different stages of development. Once the adult mosquito hatches out, it is no longer an aquatic insect for the rest of its life. It will be airborne. And that's when it starts seeking out, if it's a female, seeking out hosts from whom to take a blood meal in order to reproduce. Monarchs are unusual in that they delay reproduction in that southernmost part of their migratory pathway. Most insects, once they hatch out, once they get to an adult phase, they're going to want to reproduce as fast as possible because many insects don't live that long in their adult phase. So mosquitoes can transmit diseases. Not all mosquitoes can transmit diseases. And how this works is the mosquito is a vector, typically for viruses, but also with malaria. Malaria is a parasite. And the mosquito will bite a creature that is infected with the malaria parasite or with various disease viruses and carry that parasite in its blood to the next critter that it bites, which could be one of us. And then when it takes that blood meal, the virus or the parasite is transmitted to the next host. And that is how mosquitoes transmit diseases. That's why these diseases are called vector-borne diseases, or mosquitoes are considered vectors of disease. So if that's the case, and there can be carrying around some of these serious diseases, um, and an individual mosquito will take multiple meals from multiple sources. It's not just going to bite one source and get blood from that one source and then be ready to lay its eggs and reproduce. And that feeding around is what allows it to be a vector for disease. But we can't, get rid of them all. Come on. Who are we? What are we thinking of here? Homo sapiens. We are not the brightest bulbs in the array. Mosquitoes are really, really important parts of the food chain. Fish eat them, Bats eat them. Some birds eat them. Dragonflies are the #1 predator of mosquitoes. So if you have a pond in your yard or your neighborhood and there are dragonflies living in and around that pond, those dragonflies are an important biological control of mosquito populations. Mosquitoes can even pollinate plants. If a mosquito is on a zinnia or something and it gets a little pollen on its legs and then it flies to another zinnia, that's pollination. They're not super pollinators, but they're part of all that. And only a few kinds of mosquitoes will take that blood meal from humans. They also feed on other kinds of mammals, on birds, on rodents. There's one species of mosquito that actually feeds on the larvae of other mosquitoes. I don't know how they manage that, but that's a super zombie fun fact about mosquitoes. And there are over 3,500 unique species of mosquitoes. But out of all those variations of mosquitoes, there are individual species in only these three genuses, these three next larger groups that are a problem for us. Only a few species that can carry diseases of concern to humans. But we want to know who they are and we want to know if they're active in our area. And that helps us protect ourselves and it helps our public health agencies protect us. So just take a little look at these, a quick glance. I'm going to show you in more detail. Look at the variation in wing posture, body posture, antennas, coloration, patterns on their bodies. It's actually easy to differentiate between kinds of mosquitoes when you start looking in the same way that it's easy to differentiate between kinds of butterflies or, say, kinds of dogs, because from species to species, they look different and they all have different prey and feeding habits. This mosquito, for example, this is one that I know you have seen. This is the tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus. Aedes is its genus name. There are at least two kinds of Aedes mosquitoes that are active in our area. Only one of them can carry diseases, and there's another Aedes species, Aedes aegypti, that we don't have in our area yet that is even a more serious vector of disease than this one. Our public health agencies are keeping an eye out because when that mosquito makes it into our area, mosquito populations are migrating in the same way that armadillos are migrating, moving from south to north as the climate change. We want to be aware when more hazardous kinds of mosquitoes get into our area and then take protective measures. This is a mosquito that will bite all day long. It doesn't feed only at dusk and dawn, and it can carry diseases like chikungunya, Zika, and dengue, which are all serious viral diseases. But look at it. It's a mosquito that you can really spot it before you swat. It's it's got distinctive spots on its body. It's got really distinctive leg posture and stripy legs, and actually, it's a pretty beautiful mosquito, as mosquitoes go. Here's another kind of mosquito that is common in our area. This is Culex pippins. This is the northern house mosquito. Culex is another pretty big genus of mosquitoes, but the Culex pippins is one that can carry West Nile virus, St. Louis encephalitis. Both of those are diseases that we have had in our area. And this is a mosquito that feeds at dusk and dawn. So knowing when they're active is another way to help protect ourselves and respond appropriately if you're a public health agency. But look at this one. It's brown, got a little bit of stripiness. It's a very slender mosquito. It's a very delicate mosquito. It's got kind of a hairiness on its front parts. Start to look at the difference and be aware that we can distinguish the difference. And then this is another kind of mosquito in the three genuses that can carry diseases of concern to humans. It is not active in our area at this time. This is a species of Anopheles mosquito that can carry malaria, which is a parasite. They too feed early in the morning, dusk and dawn, or late in the evening. And look at this mosquito's body posture. It feeds really on a slant. So it's a pretty easy one to spot if it gets on you. But we don't have this specific kind of Anopheles mosquito in our area at this time. Last year, last mosquito season, there were locally transmitted, meaning somebody got it from a mosquito, not from going on vacation, locally transmitted instances of malaria in Texas and Florida. And so, again, type of mosquito that can carry disease are migrating as our climate shifts, our seasons warm, lots of biological things are changing. So we're keeping an eye out for it. I'm going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions before I go on to a little techno power.
We definitely got a couple of questions,
Yeah,
and let me just say, I definitely recognize the '80s mosquito, the tiger mosquito,
yeah.
and that guy is bad news. So, yeah. Someone's
Well, it's actually
asking.
that girl would be bad news because if
Oh,
it was a male,
you're
it wouldn't be
right.
a problem. Just, look at their name
Um,
tag and see what their
yes,
pronouns. No.
yes. Yeah. Someone's asking if they have like a bird bath or something in their yard, how often they should be changing the water so that they're not creating a breeding ground for mosquitoes.
Right, right. That's a really good question. And a lot of times when you see graphics that say these are the places where standing water could accumulate, bird baths are in the picture. Typically, we change the water in the bird bath every day or two anyway, because it gets gunky and we want to keep it clean for birds and we want to keep them clean because they're usually kind of close to us in our house and garden. So if you're doing regular bird health maintenance on your bird bath, don't worry about it being mosquito breeding. It's other kinds of stuff that tend to lay around and hold standing water that are problems. And David Tremaine, I'm going to get to BTI in a little bit. Hold that thought.
Someone
Um,
also raised a good point with water. If they have some sort of larvicide or those mosquito dunks or mosquito bits,
mhm.
can that be used to water
Yes.
plants or okay?
Yes, it can. Yes. And I'm going to get to that, mosquito dunk, mosquito bits. Really, really good stuff to know about and keep on hand. Okay. I think
I
we
think
got the mosquito question so far, yeah?
yes.
All right. Onward. Yippee. Now we get to a little tech stuff, and this is where the project that I mentioned that I'm part of, Mosquito Alert, comes in. I learned about this almost when it first started. Back in 2016, Zika virus became a very quick, very serious public health issue. It was the summer that the Summer Olympics were in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and there was a big outbreak in Brazil and also in Spain and in a county in Florida of Zika virus, which is transmitted from Aedes, primarily Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. So in Barcelona, Spain, there was a group of scientists and technology partners at the university there that developed an app really fast that summer of 2016. They called it Mosquito Alert, and they encouraged people to download it on their phones, take their phones out, look in the ditches, look in the drains, look in the places where there were sort of dry creeks. You photograph mosquitoes, mosquito breeding sites, mosquito bites, and when people uploaded those photos into their phones using this technology, Mosquito Alert, the public health officials were able to identify the kinds of mosquitoes and respond much more quickly and much more effectively with good mosquito control measures. I learned about that in 2016, and I've been interested in mosquito control since some years before that because a person in my family got West Nile virus way back in 2007, survived. It was a very, very, very serious case, and has been dealing with health issues ever since. We know from the COVID pandemic, from that coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, or COVID-19, how problematic viral diseases can be and what a range of seriousness people can experience with disease. So I was already kind of aware of that and hip to that. And when I noticed this technology, I got very interested in it. So one thing led to another. And today we are the first city in the US, the St. Louis region, that is using this app, this citizen science project, Mosquito Alert. It's in use now all over Europe and in parts of Africa and the Caribbean. And I'm very proud that the partnership that I mentioned earlier, I'll say it again later, is using this app. So when you can download Mosquito Alert on your phone for free. It looks like this, like the image on your screen. And when you're using it and you photograph mosquitoes or mosquito breeding sites or mosquito bites and upload those photos, we have a team of entomologists, bug scientists in our area that will identify what kind of mosquito they have and send that validated data point onto our public health agencies that are doing other stuff to keep track of mosquitoes. It's very, very easy to use. You download the app. It's free to use on your phone. It's a little hard to be able to get that zoom in close up to photograph a mosquito, but we all take a lot of photos and we get a lot of practice on that. And when you get to Mosquito Alert, you'll see that there are little graphic guides like the one on your screen that say, does it have this kind of stripe? Is it this color? Are its wings like this? Are its legs like this? That will help you identify the kind of mosquito you just photographed and then upload that data. It's privacy protected. So even though you might be photographing a mosquito breeding site in your neighborhood, it's not like GPS is tracking you. That geolocation is generalized so that it's not focused on where you are, it's focused on generally where the mosquito was breeding. And that can relate to sewer systems, it can relate to creeks, streams, it can relate to the topography in your neighborhood. And the big thing is participating in a citizen science project like this with Mosquito Alert on our smartphones, it adds our eyes and minds and smart technology to the capacity of our public health agencies to keep track of what kind of bugs we have and to keep us safe. And here's another better shot of the kinds of graphic guides that you'll find in Mosquito Alert that will help you say, I believe I saw this kind of mosquito. This is an Aedes albopictus, or this is a Aedes vexans, or this is a Culex pippins, or whatever. This is a project that's been going on. It really launched in St. Louis somewhere between 2020 and 2021. It definitely launched during the pandemic. But right now, we have a full team of partners. Missouri Botanical Garden, that's me. St. Louis U College of Public Health and Social Justice, Dr. Ricardo Ray, our colleague Janine Arigui, who was the head of vector control for the city of St. Louis for a number of years, has retired, still a partner, and then St. Louis County Department of Public Health. We host the Mosquito Alert webpage on our website at the Missouri Botanical Garden. And right now, our SLU partners and our St. Louis County Health partners are doing some really interesting research to evaluate do people understand this? How can we make it more understandable? How useful is it really? And we'll be at the Earth Day Festival in Forest Park this year, sharing a booth with another cool bug project called Tick Watch. So look out for us. We'll be telling people how to use the app and also sharing a lot of this good information about how to protect yourself. And then the survey that I mentioned, the formal academic research that is coming out of St. Louis University is really it's part of a movement of social scientists to join with entomologists and ecologists and biologists and virologists, epidemiologists, to better understand how diseases are transmitted and how we can communicate about this to the public so that we can protect ourselves better and have some trust in science, for crying out loud. These people know a lot. We're doing a lot on social media. These are the kinds of things you'll see when you get to this the Mosquito Alert Instagram page or Facebook group page. We've got some wonderful young colleagues who are doing this work, and it's something that we're very proud of. So, one thing I really want you to take away from this, this is a really hard fact about pest control. When you spray chemicals out, bugs kills bugs, period. It does not differentiate between one kind or another, and that's spraying chemicals. There are chemical treatments that can target only specific kinds of insects. Mosquito dunks, mosquito bits is one. David, you incorporated the term BTI. I'll get to that in just a minute. Mosquito spray, bug spray that we use, that's a really good place to use the chemical magic because it's like putting on an invisibility cloak that jams the sensory signals that mosquitoes are using to find us. And then the very unglamorous, the very fundamental, dump standing water, eliminate standing water on our properties. That's how we can use our eco logic to control the pests, not call out the company that is going to say they're going to keep your yard mosquito free for 30 days, save those guys for if you have termites. Here's what the public health professionals do, and I really like to educate people about this because there's a lot of mistrust of public health agencies. And this is St. Louis County Department of Public Health. A lot of what they do is they send teams, they hire up little crews in the summer, and they send teams out into our parks, along our streams and creeks on public property, and they literally set traps to attract gravid female mosquitoes, meaning female mosquitoes that are getting ready to lay eggs, and in places where there's likely mosquito breeding. This is one way that they keep track of the kind of mosquito that is active in our area. And the public health folks will take the contents of those traps back to a lab, and literally somebody will sort through all those bug bits and analyze what kinds of insects were there, what species of mosquitoes, and this is also a first step in testing whether there are mosquitoes active in our area that are actually transmitting the kinds of diseases that we want to watch out for. So are there mosquitoes active that are transmitting West Nile virus, for example? This is all part of that laboratory process. Then the other thing is, and this gets to the part about larvicide and about BTI. Our public health agencies can go into public areas like in our parks, in creeks that are on public property, and actually treat the water with larvicide. It's cakes of stuff. It's called BTI. You can see that word there on the photo. They use big briquettes of it. We can use little donuts and little bits of it. BTI is it's stuff that changes the chemistry of water so that mosquitoes cannot go through their reproductive cycle. And it is I'll say a little bit more about it in just 1 minute. The last thing, the very last thing that St. Louis County, for example, will do is run trucks around and do fogging, spray out aerial chemicals. St. Louis County contracts with many of the municipalities in the county to provide mosquito control. And if your community contracts with the county, even if your community, even if your mayor wants them to drive fogging trucks around, they won't do it unless their surveillance says, we know that there's the presence of the kinds of mosquitoes that carry diseases. And then they will drive their fogging truck and be very, very careful in that use only when there's evidence of the presence of mosquitoes that can carry diseases. Because this practice, this chemical magic, will not do nothing to stop mosquito breeding. Here's a difference between the well-tuned public health agency and the private pest control company and their claims. St. Louis County, calibrate their equipment so the size of the droplets that spray out of that truck are very, very, very small to target just mosquitoes, much less likely to be harmful to larger insects like bees, beetles, butterflies, moths, much less likely. And also, there is no residual chemical added to the mix that comes out of the fogging truck. Those droplets, that chemical remains active only for about 15 minutes and then it disperses. It disperses in UV lights and only will be done when surveillance down in the field, in the water, gives us evidence of the fact that we have the kind of mosquitoes active in our area that can carry disease. That fogging will very, very, very targeted, very limited use, will knock down the adult population of mosquitoes, which will help decrease reproduction. A private pest control company will say, we'll keep your yard mosquito free for 30 days. And they will come out and spray your yard, but in their chemical mix will be a barrier chemical that is designed to stay on the plants and remain active for 30 days. And that application will make every plant in your yard lethal to any insect that lands on that plant. And people want this, and that's why that service exists. But when we know a little bit more about that service, we can be much more educated, discerning consumers when it comes to the chemical magic. Then the other big thing, the really important big thing is this is the best graphic I've seen that shows the kinds of areas that mosquitoes can breed in standing water around our property. Maybe there's a hole in a tree and water is standing in there. Maybe there's do you have a tire swing? In a lot of areas in our region, there's a lot of illegal dumping, including dumping of tires. And when tires are dumped in alleys or backyards or along creeks or things like that, that is ideal mosquito breeding situation. Are there wagons or toys or, is the dog's frisbee laying upside down way in the back of the yard? After it rains, go out in your yard, take a kid out because kids are really natural detectives and look for anything that might hold standing water. Pick it up, put it in the garage, put it in the shed, put it in the recycling bin, or put it in the trash, and get that standing water container out of your yard. If your neighbor's out of town and they have a boat with a cover or a pool with a cover and standing water is collecting in there, I'm going to skip ahead to here. You can use this stuff, BTI, treat standing water that you cannot dump. Here's where I get to say in detail what this is. BTI is short for Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. It's a strain of BT, which is a stuff that occurs naturally in soil spores. This is not a synthetic chemical. And this particular strain of BTI, it's kind of like, do you have regular pepper or do you have garlic pepper? It's a special strain of a similar thing. It's only toxic to insects in Diptera, the fly family, which includes mosquitoes. So you might have a problem if you're friends with flies, but this stuff changes the chemistry of standing water. It will not harm fish. It will not harm birds. It will not harm your plants. It will not harm amphibians. It is only toxic to insects in one family, Diptera, the fly family. And what it does is it changes the chemistry of water so that mosquito larvae cannot eat. I like to say it makes their guts explode, but really that's a little bit of an exaggeration. So I always say I'm exaggerating, and then I say guts explode because we remember it. You can get this stuff at any home improvement store, any Home Depot, any Lowe's, any True Value Hardware, any local hardware store, any local garden center. Normally, you get it in the dunk shape, in the donut shape, and it's about $9 for a package of 6 of these dunks, which are compressed cakes of stuff that occurs naturally in soil spores. You break up a little bit of it, you put that in the standing water, it changes the chemistry of standing water. If you have a low, soggy place in your yard, you can broadcast some of this across the soil, and that will help retard mosquito breeding. If you have a corrugated drain pipe, I'm going to go back to my spot here. You can broadcast some of that up into the drain pipe, and that will help retard mosquito breeding. Keep your gutters clean if you can, or if one of your neighbors is not well or just doesn't have the means to clean their gutter, can you offer to help them with that? That will help keep down mosquito breeding in your neighborhood. If you can't eliminate standing water, by dumping it, you can treat that standing water with BT, and it's a BTI. It's a good thing to keep on hand. It is really a good, safe product. And I've done a lot of research into this, including making sure that I was protecting snakes that were living under some bushes where we had soggy stuff, because I didn't want to hurt my snakes. So, little personal thing here. What attracts mosquitoes to you? What attracts mosquitoes to a human being to take that blood meal to reproduce? Several things. It's not your diet. It's not your blood type. It's not how sweet you are or what your temperament is like. It is what all animals do. It's primarily carbon dioxide. It also attacks that same stuff, CO2, what we exhale. It also attracts ticks and chiggers. And mosquitoes have remarkable sensory capability. So they are attracted by an oxygen breathing, carbon dioxide exhaling creature. They're also attracted to some extent by lactic acid, which is given off by our muscles after we exercise. They're more attractive by dark colors than they are by light colors. So when we wear loose, light colored clothing in the summer, that's one of those mosquito protecting things. That's why mosquitoes can't see light colored clothing as well as they can dark colored clothing. And, a little bit it has to do with movement. Fragrance. Summer mosquito season is a really, really, really good time to go fragrance free in your laundry detergent, in your body wash. I stopped wearing my favorite French cologne through the whole summer season because it attracts mosquitoes, and I'm trying to keep myself, out of the healthcare system. Plus, I don't really want to get those diseases. So that's what attracts mosquitoes. And when you use a good mosquito repellent, what it does, like I said, it's like an invisibility cloak. That chemical on your skin jams the sensory signals that mosquitoes are using to find you as prey. That's how mosquito repellents work. It used to be that only DEET was the one that US EPA said only use DEET. That's the only thing that's effective. Very effective. It was developed by the US military during World War II to protect troops fighting in the Pacific Theater. DEET has been the gold standard of mosquito repellents since then. But today, EPA also recognizes several other active ingredients, and 3 of them are plant-based ingredients. So look for these 3 plant-based ingredients, the ones that are in boldface there, if you want to use a DEET-free plant-based mosquito repellent. Catnip oil, oil of lemon eucalyptus, citronella oil. The University of Illinois did no, it was Iowa. University of Iowa did a study in 2010 that showed that a substance in the oil of the plant catnip, which is in the mint family, that substance is called nepetalactone, is as effective or more effective than DEET in repelling mosquitoes. So catnip oil is a really good ingredient to have. The downside is if you go by your cat will climb your legs. So spray a little of that catnip oil mosquito repellent on some cats, and that'll distract your cat while you're out in the yard. The other thing is, and hardly anybody knows this when I'm out talking about this stuff, mosquitoes are really wimpy flyers. So on a breezy day, guess what? No mosquitoes. On a still day, put out an electric fan and aim that breeze at your picnic site, at your lawn chair. Mosquitoes will not land on you when you're sitting in a breeze, and you will be cooler. Ta-da! This is something that we know when we know a little bit more about mosquito biology, we can protect ourselves effectively. And mosquito repellent works differently for different people's body chemistry. Body chemistry changes as we age. It can change when you get pregnant. It can change if you're immune compromised. So try a couple different kinds of mosquito repellents. When you find one that works for you, use it. If eating garlic works for you, great. There is no scientific evidence that it works as a mosquito repellent, but some people swear by it. If Avon Skin So Soft works for you, great. But don't mess around with those things. Don't get the little thing that emits a high frequency signal. Don't think that planting a certain kind of plant is going to repel mosquitoes because the plant is here and the mosquito is looking for you. Do use a good mosquito repellent, use fans, and understand what works and doesn't work. Almost done here. Mosquito alert. Free to use, citizen science, active in the US, pretty cool, we think. When we add a little techno sense to that eco sense and practice good yard maintenance, dump standing water, plant milkweeds, we are supporting the pollinators as we control the pests, and we're really doing our best in doing all this. So I'm going to look at the questions and ask you, please, if you would take just a moment, we're almost done, and use this QR code. This is a different one. This is a little post test, if you will. The first one was a little pre-survey. This is a little post survey that will give our mosquito alert team the chance to see how are we doing? Are we getting our message across? And while you're doing that, I'm going to look at the chat and see, Chad, do we have a
Lots
question?
lots of questions about BTI, which I think you answered most of them.
Okay.
As a pond owner, I was excited that they are mostly safe. So, somebody did
Yes.
ask though that or ask if BTI has a shelf life. Does it expire if it's these like ground spores?
I have not seen expiration dates on a BTI package. That is a good thing to look at on the BTI package, but um, I do not believe so.
Um, Also, someone asked if you could say anything about the myth that different blood types attract
Not true.
mosquitoes. Not
Not
true.
true.
Okay.
Not true. Not true. And no,
Um,
mosquito dunks do not harm frogs, frog eggs, or tadpoles. They are only this strain of BTI, Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, the dunks or the bits, only harm insects in the fly family, Diptera, meaning two wings, Diptera, which includes mosquitoes.
Someone also asked about termite spray. I'm assuming that's the kind of spray that is just going around the house. Would
First
that
of
have any
all,
effect?
First of all, termite pesticide application is going to target where termites live, which is in wood, and you do not want termites eating the wood of your house. So that is a very targeted application in around and on our dwellings. Mosquito fogging from pest companies, that's spraying your whole yard. That's that kind of treatment.
Um, I think
Oh,
one or
and
two. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so David Tremaine, you asked about sterile insect technique. This is like releasing sterilized male mosquitoes. So if they mate with female mosquitoes, reproduction cannot happen. You know, that's the jury's still out on that kind of stuff. There is genomic, there is CRISPR technology, there's a lot of technology being used to control populations of disease-bearing mosquitoes. My concern about those practices is often that those technologies are rushed to market before there is enough research done on them because we want that kind of give it to me in the big guns protection. But it's very interesting stuff and it's worthwhile keeping tabs on.
Gene, I know we're a little over time. Do you have time for like maybe one
I
or two
do.
more? Okay.
I
Um,
do.
Someone did mention those mosquito repellent devices that you can hook onto yourself.
Meh, meh, meh.
Those are bad news.
Well, they don't do anything.
Gotcha.
There isn't anything there that is we know based on mosquito biology and on scientific testing is going to jam the sensory signal that a mosquito is looking to find you. It's not using sonic signals. It's using mostly olfactory signals, smell stuff. You know, if you try it and you go out in the woods and you don't get any mosquito bites, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm also telling you what I know works.
Let's see. Maybe one more question.
Yeah.
I've thought about this as a lot as well as somebody who has lots of potted plants in my
Yes.
backyard.
Yes.
Those are one of like the biggest breeders for mosquitoes, right? Because there's water usually sitting in the
Yes.
bottom of
Yes.
the reservoir. So, should we stay away from the self-watering containers and those kinds of things?
You know, if you're going to be on vacation and you have a lot of plants and you want to use a self-watering container, one of the things you can do is just put a little mosquito dunk or a little mosquito bit in that container while you're gone. And if a female mosquito does get in there and lay her eggs and the reproduction cycle occurs in that container, it can't be completed because the larval guts will explode. And
Oh,
if you have pots on your patio with saucers, turn those saucers upside down in the summer so they're not holding standing water. We get busy. We forget to go out there and dump the standing water. So the best thing is, after it rains, find the things that hold the standing water and get them out of there.
I am definitely guilty of that. So I will take your advice, and all of my potted plants, I'm going to make sure that there's no standing water in them,
Yes.
or I'll use mosquito bits. So thank
Yes.
you. Yeah.
I have not heard of Spartan mosquito traps, Melissa M. Tubes of something you mix with water, hang around the garden. Okay, so if if it's a tube of water hanging around the garden, it may or may not deter mosquito breeding. But monarch butterflies or other butterflies are not going to get down in that trap, and they're, they're not looking for getting water out of sources like that, probably. They're going to get water from easy sources, and they're also, yeah, not going down into little traps. Okay, so my last couple of slides. Thank you for taking our little post survey, if you did. And last words, native plants, they're the ones that can restore biodiversity in our yards, in our parks, in our schoolyards, around our churches, around our businesses. They are the ones that have evolved over millions of years of time, hundreds of thousands of years of time with insects, and they have a reciprocal relationship. They support each other in many ways. This doesn't mean you have to rip out your boxes and your petunias and your knockout roses, but next time you go to design a garden or add to your garden, go for the native plants. Thank you for all the thumbs up and the hearts. I really, really
There are
appreciate that.
so many.
And Grow Native is the mother lode of resources about native plants. Mosquito alert, we'd love to have you be a part of that, be an ongoing or whenever you've got the bandwidth to use it of the Mosquito Alert app. You can find us online at mobot.org. That's the garden's website /mosquito alert, or you can just search Mosquito Alert STL. We have a Facebook group and an Instagram group, and we'll be at the Earth Day Festival, as I said, along with Tick Watch. And last but not least, at the Missouri Botanical Garden, we have a Green Resources Information Service. We will answer your questions about anything having to do with sustainable living by email or by phone at any time. A real person will answer those questions, and I am that person. Been a really wonderful part of my job since 2007 to be the garden's green answer girl. So if you have a question that wasn't answered or you think of something later, just send it to greenresources@mobot.org, and we'll be very, very happy to answer your question. And if it needs a little research, like, I might want to look up about Spartan mosquito traps. I had not heard of those before. Would look it up and give you an even more clear and as an I would say authoritative answer. We try to be authoritative because we're speaking for the garden after all. And in this case, through St. Louis County Library, thank you, thank you, thank you for being our host, St. Louis County Library. We native plant fans love you.
Oh my gosh, Jean, thank you so much. This program was so informative, and I know that we received lots of comments saying thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And I'm so happy because there were some unanswered questions, I'm sure,
Great.
that you have this green resources at mobot.org, I think.
We do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I know that people will be viewing this webinar on the County Library's YouTube channel. We'll be putting them on our Partners for Native Landscaping.org channel also. So this information will be out there. We can refer people to it, and that will include green resources at mobot.org. It's almost mosquito season, so this is a good time to gear up for that. And it's almost monarch season. So very glad to be able to bring this to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And like Jean said, this program is recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube page, and I'll send a follow-up link with all of the links and everything from today's program. So thank you everyone at home, and thank you, Jean. I definitely am gonna use some of the knowledge I learned today. So, and I'll see
Happy,
you at Earth Day Festival.
yay, happy spring. Be well,
Happy spring.
everybody.